All right, here we go. All right, welcome back. We're here live again with the MSNS podcast. My name is Toby. I'm a senior two.
My name is Ryan. I am a sophomore too.
And then today we have a special guest.
Hi, my name is JJ.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so the first thing we always ask, we have a typical question that we always ask everybody, but then I saw one of your recent videos on YouTube and I kind of wanted to change it, like adjust in a way. Because you said that your passion in life is for people, right? And you use nursing as your platform.
Yes,
Can
definitely.
you talk about like why you chose nursing specifically as your platform?
Oh, sure. It wasn't really, it was ultimately my choice, right? But my mom was a nurse and, I wanted to major in biology. And my mom said, "You're not majoring in biology. You're going to major in nursing." I'm like, okay. I'm 18 years old. I didn't know what the world brought, and my mom was the one who kind of guided me. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Did I love it? I wouldn't say I did it. Not really. I'm not going to lie. But like I said, it allows me to, what was I going to say? Is this going to be edited out?
We just leave it all.
No, we
all
leave it.
there.
Okay.
It's all natural.
Oh my God. So, like I said in that video, people is my passion, and nursing allows me to do that because you talk to so many different people. I ended up liking nursing, right? But I wouldn't classify nursing as my actual passion. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, and that's a
Like
really
what
interesting
made you
take.
like
Go ahead.
sorry. I was just like, what made you like start becoming like more passionate about using nursing as that platform? Like once you started nursing school, like when was like that time where you started like, oh yeah, this is good. Like I really like genuinely love nursing and like what it stands for.
Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably my first year of nursing outside of school, right? Probably as a new grad, I'm like, oh, so this is what nursing is. This is what I'm able to do. And as student nurses, it's like you're studying the textbooks. Yeah, yes, you go to clinicals, and I know it's a little harder right now because of the whole COVID thing, but you don't really have a good grasp on it. And I wish I could show you what I mean by that, but unless you go through it, you won't really know, because everything's like, by the book when you're in school, as it should be. But once I started being on the floor, taking care of patients, taking care of critical patients, and really seeing what I was doing to other human beings as a nurse, it really was like, wow, this is pretty cool, and I'm really a social type of guy. I would say I like talking to other people, and I'm like, I can still talk to patients, I can still talk to patients' families. I can still use, be social like I love being, but in this nursing setting with my coworkers, my patients. And it's been really cool for me and my personality, I think.
And rewinding back a little bit, just because so you graduated from UCI in 2014.
Correct.
So can you describe a little bit about your time in nursing school itself? Like, did you have like a nursing organization like the Male Student Nursing Society, like we have at USF, or what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I remember there was a few organizations that were there for nursing. There was our Student Nurse Association.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
NSSA, Nursing Science Student Association. I butchered this, and I'm a
No,
terrible.
it's okay. It's okay.
And then there was, of course, the Fraternity of Nurses, which is, I think, AED or something, ATD, that was just started while I was there. I wasn't really part of any of those. Kind of like how USF, right? When you're a first year, you're in the nursing program for the whole 4 years, right? Mine was the same way. In my first 2 years, it was hard because you're doing prereqs. You're not in nursing school. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going to happen in third or fourth year. So I wasn't involved in nursing stuff. Like, I'm surprised that you are, Ryan, and I'm sure you can attest. It's really hard because you don't know what nursing school is going to bring, but you're being involved. So I was involved in other things. I was involved in cultural clubs. I was involved in student government, and that's what I was mostly in, and that's why contributed to my saying nursing isn't my passion, because it isn't what I was going after. I was going after, like, talking to people, being social. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
So
such a different take on nursing. A lot of people, when you talk to them, they had some family member or themselves who had a close encounter with healthcare. They're mom or dad was a nurse, or there's someone or something, some event that really pushed them into nursing, right? Like that becomes their passion. And then so it's interesting to see where you're coming from, where you have a passion, which is people. You're passionate about people, the interactions, getting to talk to people, and nursing is really just the catalyst, that platform that allows you to do that. And so it's not that nursing itself is the thing that you're passionate about, but what it allows you to do that you're passionate about.
Exactly.
It's so different from a lot of what you see from people.
Exactly. It's so different from what you see on like Instagram, what you see on YouTube, people talking about nursing. And that's why I really want to let people know that, hey, like I am a nurse, but I'm not like hardcore nursing, and some people are like that, not taking that away from them, but there's this whole other population. There's many different types of nursing where, hey, nursing isn't really what I love. It's not my passion, but I like being a nurse.
Yeah. And I think that's important for us to have. You're the first person, to really bring that to us. And I've had a lot of classmates who, through the nursing program, right? For us, it's our first year where we have only prereqs, whereas for your program, it was the first 2 years.
Yeah.
You don't see this representation in the program a lot. A lot of people feel very disenfranchised where they're doing these prereqs and they're like, man, this sucks. Like, I hate this. And, even some people where they get to that first year for us of, in our sophomore year, as Ryan has just finished up, where you're finally starting to do something nursing, and people still at the end of that second year are like, man, this still sucks. And then some people even get to the third year and they're still like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if nursing is for me. And so I've had, peers who first year, second year, even third year are dropping out of nursing when maybe it's simply that they haven't had someone like you to tell them that, hey, it's okay if you're not passionate about it, as long as you can find something in the field that works for you. And maybe nursing isn't for them, but I think that this is a very important, nuance to the field where, you don't necessarily have to be extremely living, breathing nursing to be a nurse. You can still be a nurse. Maybe you need to find a way to make nursing work for you rather than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with that. I really like how you framed that, because I hated going through those prereqs too. I hated going through nursing school too. Right? Like, I mean, just being real, it was hard, it's not something I wanted to do, but also because I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Even when you graduated, you kind of see a little bit at the end of the tunnel, but you don't really see what is it that you're working towards, right? And then when you're there, you're just like, is this all there is? But I mean, just like with anything, if you don't try to do random things, right? Not random things. If you don't explore what nursing has to offer, you're just going to be stuck where you're going to be. But finishing out nursing 100%, I had to do it,
I agree with that.
Right?
Yeah, like I was
prematurely. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry, but I was just saying, yeah, I agree, because totally when I was a freshman going through my prereqs and even like maybe my first semester of sophomore year, I felt like I was just going through the motions. I didn't really see what I was working towards. It was like a higher, honestly, I didn't see what I was working towards. It just felt like I was just working. I was just studying every day, trying to memorize, trying to understand all this and that, but didn't feel like I was actually in nursing until probably this semester of like sophomore year.
It's hard, all right? You're learning general bio, and your colleagues or your classmates are like, yeah, I'm gonna go to medical school, or I'm gonna be in the science field doing something they know what they want to do, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be a nurse, but I don't know why I'm taking this class.
Right?
Yeah,
but I think one good thing about, I don't know if it's like other schools do it too, but like USF, they start clinicals off like the first semester of sophomore year, and I feel like that is it's like I feel like it's a lot more earlier than most nursing programs, and I feel like it's super crucial and like very important that we do that. I feel like once you give those nursing students like a little bit of taste of like the clinical setting and like what they will be doing in the future, I feel like it kind of gives them a little bit of more motivation of like seeing that light at the end of the tunnel.
For sure. Being in the hospital, right? Being in the hospital, being around nurses. Yeah, it's huge. So your nursing program, you're already in clinicals during the second semester of your sophomore year?
First semester.
First
sophomore
semester.
year. So we get six total semesters of clinical experience. So we start off in our first sophomore semester, sophomore one, everyone's in sort of a rehabilitation, skilled nursing
yeah.
facility type of setting. And then, so that's, with that, you work more closely with the CNAs usually, but it really does set a really strong foundation. And you also
I
get to
think it
see
eases you
that
into
as
it too.
it's easier because your population generally is not as acute, and then also when you do work with the nurse, it's usually just for your med passes, and it's nice to see that that aspect of nursing that I feel like you don't really see enough. People don't talk enough about what skilled nursing is,
Yeah.
and really just that field. It's it's a tough field. It's not something that a lot of people tend to want to go into, but it's important to be able to see that aspect of nursing care, because the things that you do in the acute care hospitals impacts that population, right? If you mess up, someone's going to end up in a skilled nursing facility
Yeah.
because of your mistakes or because of the lack of care that you receive. And you definitely see that. I've seen people who are young in a skilled nursing facility. I've seen people who are old. It's not just you don't just see older adults in skilled nursing facilities. You see people of all ages there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then
That's cool that you're exposed to that really early.
yeah, and it's good because we get that foundation of our fundamental skills. We get to really work on bed linen changes and
Yeah.
transferring and all of these skills that once you get to the second sophomore semester, where it's our first med surg rotation. So we actually get 2 med surg rotations.
Yeah.
So the first one's in our sophomore 2 semester, and those that foundation really helps transition into that. And then after a tough med surg semester, then with junior 1 we get our psych and community health rotation. And
Mhm.
so our program allows us to get certified as a public health nurse by the end of it if we
Oh yeah.
choose to, which
Me
I think is pretty cool. I know a lot of programs have it, but some programs don't.
A
And
lot
so
of
it's
programs
nice,
don't.
yeah, so it's nice to have that as kind of a break, but it also I think exposes a lot of the mental health issues that nursing students face, because I know that was probably my toughest semester mentally, because there were a lot of repressed things, stresses and things that you're not dealing with as you're going through the program, that once you get to that semester it really hits, like, and all these
Yeah.
things you didn't know were there start coming out, and you're just like, shoot, why is this semester so tough? And then you
Yeah.
realize the stress and the anxieties, all of those things piling up, and then you have to find a way to deal with that. So that was the semester for me that at
When
least
was
I
this?
was the junior 1.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then so after that, it was a nice mental health break and really working through these issues. Then you get to junior 2, which is our second med surg rotation, and that one's a toughie. Like a lot of people I talk to, myself included, after the second med surg semester, everyone's burnt out. That summer, people were just like, yeah, I did nothing for a month. I just laid in bed and slept and stuff. It's definitely very draining. And then we get to our senior 1 semester, which is our peds and maternity rotation.
Yeah.
And that one, I think it depends on who, but it can definitely creep up on people, because you have your half the semester is devoted to maternity clinicals and the other half is devoted to peds, and you kind of switch off. So some people start off with peds, some people start off with maternity, and then you just swap halfway through the semester.
That was mine too. I think for
Oh,
my
okay.
you do quarters. We did peds and critical care, and OB, which is maternity.
Wow.
And that's the one I failed. I actually failed peds. I failed peds.
Oh, wow.
I failed peds clinical, which people don't believe me, just because I'm a clown. And 2, when you become a nurse, you don't really believe nurses when they say that they failed the class or whatever. But I failed peds clinical, so it sent me back a whole year, which
Oh,
is
shoot, a whole year?
Oh,
a whole
snap.
year.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So I took 5 years. But I
Wow.
mean, like I've said before, it just kind of shapes who I am today, as cheesy as that sounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, how is stress and anxiety now with the COVID? I can't even imagine.
I think it's pretty high for a lot of people, and that's kind of why we decided to start this podcast. Hopefully, people can listen to it, and hopefully, it brings someone some level of calm, that they're not alone, and we're all really in this. We're all dealing with this, and just talking about random things that are related to nursing and just different people's experiences, and bringing on you're the first nurse actually that we brought on that wasn't in our program.
Mhm.
Thank you for having
just
me.
to, yeah,
Of
just to,
course.
bring in different perspectives so people can see, it's gonna be okay. And here's somebody who's been through the ringer, so to speak, not necessarily through a pandemic, but here's
Yeah,
someone
Mhm.
who's, been through nursing school, and here's where they are now. And that's kind of the goal of the alumni nights as well, is,
Mhm.
hey, this
Yeah.
person, they went through USF's program, here they are, you know 6 years later from starting the program, or even longer, and what are they up to.
yeah,
Yeah, and also something different that I felt, because like obviously you're the first person, like our first guest that has an actual YouTube channel. You have a
yeah.
personal vlog style channel, and you also have a
I do.
main channel called The Charming Nurse.
I do.
Can you talk
You
a
found the
little?
other
Yeah,
one?
And he's very charming.
you're
Uh,
very charming. Yeah,
Thank you.
and can you talk a little bit about like why you started the channel and like what are the type of videos that you're putting out?
Oh man, yeah. So I have that personal channel, just kind of like to document the journey. It's kind of fell off, but it was to document my YouTube journey, right? That's where my personal channel is. And then I have my Charming Nurse channel, which I created to people always say, follow your passion, follow what you want to do. And, what I'm really into is personal development, interpersonal communication. So I created the channel, The Charming Nurse, where the idea was, and I'll get into that in a moment why I say was, the idea was to help people with those soft skills, how to talk to people, how to talk to patients, how to talk to doctors, how to handle high risk, high stakes situations, because that's the stuff I would read. That's the stuff I nerd about. How can I better communicate with others? So that's why I started that channel, The Charming Nurse. And then it wasn't picking up like I thought it would, and it wasn't as fun making videos. So I actually did a channel direction change probably a month ago or 5 weeks ago, where I said, I'm going to try something different. Because that's what YouTube is. You just kind of experiment and see what people like, what people don't like. And I said, let me try healthcare and comedy and see
Mhm.
where that goes. I made a couple videos on healthcare and being funny. And then that essential video, which people like started reaching out to me for, like, I think that's how I met Toby.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
People really like that one. So I said, okay, let me try to make more funny videos, And I
Mhm.
wouldn't consider myself a comedy writer whatsoever, but this is what I enjoy. I enjoyed making videos. I enjoyed making people laugh. Again, that whole people is my passion thing. I always like making people laugh. And YouTube, just like nursing, is one of those platforms for me, right? And I'm
Mhm.
combining who I am, my identity, which is nursing, and then what I like to do, which is make people laugh, into one channel. And that's pretty much where I am right now. Can it change later? It might, right? Because I barely started making funny videos recently, but that's kind of why I made it.
Mhm.
That's
But
so
yeah.
awesome. Like, I think what I've seen, the common theme I've really seen from all of the nurses that I've talked to, is nursing really does change you. Those 4 years or 5 years, however long it takes you to get through nursing school, it
Right.
really does form and shape you as a person. And like you said, even though it's not your passion, it does become your identity. You are a nurse, and it is pretty much how you live your life.
Yes.
And it's really cool to see this growth. And then once people enter nursing, then they decide what nursing means to them, what it is to
Yes.
them. And then you kind of really, this whole process is really just this whole growth journey where you learn to be true to yourself, right? So for you, you tried something, it didn't work, and then so you tried something else that maybe is more in your lane of who you are.
Right.
And so you
Absolutely.
get, and then so like even just watching that video, even though I had just met you, I got to see, oh, here's what here's what JJ is like. I get to know you a
Mhm.
little bit just
Right.
from watching the video. And so whatever form it is, I think nursing really allows people to get to know themselves and really
Oh,
find
for
ways
sure.
to express yourself, right?
For sure. Yeah, it does, if you let it though, because sometimes, and I've experienced burnout, which is super real, where I just hated my job. I've worked several units. I've tried everything. I feel like a lot of nurses said that. I've tried everything. I've tried ICU, ER, med surge, outpatient, and in each of those jobs, I felt the burnout. I'm like, I don't want to be here right now. And I would always, it's if you do that self-reflection, right? Some people will stay in that job because it's a stable job. Some people will stay in that job and say, yeah, I don't like my job, but it pays the bills. And yes, it does. But for me, I'm like, I don't like it here. Peace out. You know, I don't like the work I'm doing. You know, I love the people I meet. I love my patients, but I don't like the work I'm doing. Let me go try something else. Some people won't take that step to try something else, and they'll end up stuck, you know, and being further burned out and further burned out. And you'll see a lot of nurses like that, which is unfortunate. But, you know, for me, I'm like, I need to try something else. I need to try something else. Then finally, my most recent burnout, I was like, I need to try something else. Maybe that's not a nursing job. Let me try YouTube.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how, you know, my creative outlet, because nursing's a little, to me, square, but not in a bad way. Square in the terms where you have to follow policies and procedures. You're taking care of lives, you know? There's not much space for creativity, although there's space for your personality. Yes, as far as creativity, like, oh, let me try this with this patient. I feel like entry-level bedside nurses, that's not a space for where you can change that, you know? And that's why people pursue advanced degrees, I think, you know, to do something more where they're able to do more for their patients or do something different for their patients rather than your standard basic bedside care, which is very important. I'm currently a bedside nurse still. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I
No,
think
but
that
not
it's
a hero.
I think it's just like when you think about it, it's I feel like a lot of people who I've talked to who have like experienced burnout, it's because they kind of let nursing consume their life in a way. Like when they start pushing out everything out and kind of just when you purely focus on nursing in your life, it kind of does consume you because of all the stress, mental and physical toll it takes on you. But I think it's
Absolutely.
awesome that you're able to find that outlet, realizing that although nursing is a huge part of my life, it doesn't have to consume my entire life. You can
Yes.
have passion projects on the other side and just do something else that also kind of complements nursing in a way too.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely knew I wanted to make something with nursing. I just didn't know what, you know, so it's still a learning process for sure. And that's what I've come to realize. It's like you never really make it to your, you know, people say dream job, and that's cool for them. They made it their dream job, but I feel like to me, it's just this continual process of learning curves, you know. And there's been several points in my career I'm like, I'm not really learning. Yeah, I have different situations every day. Yeah, I have different patients every day, but I'm not really like, there's something still missing, you know. And I think that's why I
Mm-hmm.
went to YouTube, where, oh my God, it's another learning curve. It's huge.
Yeah.
And so,
And like,
oh,
oh yeah,
go ahead,
sorry,
Ryan.
Toby.
No, you go ahead, Ryan.
Oh no, I was gonna talk about the essential workers video because I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool. Like I was gonna say like did you feel like you were making that video? Is it like the way I saw it was kind of like you were kind of bringing to light how some people might be taking advantage of the free food or kind of letting that title of essential worker like getting into their heads in a way. Am I?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can break down that video. I think
Mm-hmm.
when you break down funny things, it doesn't get as funny, but that that was essentially the message, right? Like people, I see these Facebook posts and Instagram posts talking about heroes, and people posting, oh, but I'm not a hero. People posting, you know, just things that I'm just like, okay, that's, yes, we are important to the workplace. Yes, we're important to the workforce and to this COVID pandemic. But I feel like some people take that to the extreme. So what I did, I took that even more extreme, right? Like, what would someone who has a big head because of this, what would they look like going to Costco? What would they look like trying to get their Starbucks, having Starbucks closed? And I've talked to some of my colleagues, some people, and people have messaged me. They're like, dude, I was kind of pissed that Starbucks was closed. And it's just like, damn, like, and I've been pissed too, but I just took that and just like exaggerated it.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I think, you know, nurses haven't gotten a lot of attention over the years, and I think this pandemic really put the spotlight on us. And some people are just running with it, which is good because we're, I think, underappreciated overall.
And I think it's important to, you know, when you put out something like the essential workers video, it's also important that, you know, to recognize now that the spotlight is on nurses, but there's a lot of people that kind of get lost in that spotlight, right? People
Yes.
who are working, you know, migrant farmers, grocery store workers. You know, I have a friend who, you know, her parent was working in the grocery store and actually, you know, got the virus and got very sick as a result. Luckily, he's recovering now. But you know, that stuff that's happening, and it's stuff that's not exactly as talked about, because all of the energy, all of the attention is towards, you know, our doctors, our nurses,
Yes.
our respiratory techs, CNAs, everyone who's working in the hospital, which they are important. And, you know, you thank everybody who's doesn't really have a choice and is still going to work, but there's also a lot of other people who also don't have a choice and are still
Right.
going to work, are still getting exposed, and yet they're not that they're doing it to get the glory, because no one entered nursing thinking, you know what, one of these days a pandemic's gonna hit and I'm gonna get all that free Starbucks and Krispy Kreme. You know, no one's doing
Yes.
that. No one's doing
There's
that just for
zero
that.
glory in
Yeah.
nursing. I just
Yeah.
want to put out there, zero glory. You can
Yeah.
save lives. You can save the patient's life. You will not, you know, the glory does not go to you ever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and it's like, you know, no one's entering this field for that, but now that that's here, and you know, we're seeing how people are reacting to it. You know, some people are like, don't call me here. You know, I'm just doing my job, and they actually hate the attention because
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like, you're in a sense, you know, by making us into heroes, you're kind of minimizing all of those issues that are still there, you know, the dangers of the job
correct.
and all of that, right? Because then,
Yes.
you know, you don't want to turn people into martyrs when they die, because there's
Yes.
actual systemic issues that
100%.
are happening. You know, people shouldn't be dying because they're not getting protection, and yet if you make them into a hero, that's what they die as, even though they really died a tragic death. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you know, there's also all of these other people that get ignored and aren't being talked about, aren't, not that they're doing it for the perks, but aren't getting recognized for the important things that they're doing.
Correct. I agree. I think some of it is a little extreme for the attention that we have on nurses, but some, like I said, we haven't gotten this attention in a while, so some nurses are really running with it. But it's a little too much from what I see personally on social media. But I'm glad you brought up, what did you just say? Oh man, I just blanked out.
Like about nursing being kind of glamorized or romanticized in a sense.
Yeah. I hope people aren't gonna think, you know, oh, I'm gonna be a nurse now because, you know, they get perks. You know, it's very, very rare we get perks. Chipotle actually made a Instagram video about this. As a little side note, I made an Instagram video last year about how Chipotle took away the buy one get one free for Nurses Week last year, and people don't remember this, but I was pissed because I love Chipotle. And then now they're donating burritos to nurses, you know. But it's just little things like that, you know. Like, oh, this is what I remember what you said. A lot of these issues were systemic within healthcare, were already happening before COVID. Short staff, short supply, you know, administration treating workers wrong. You see that all the time. People being, you know, I think there was a doctor in Portland who was fired because of what he spoke out against the hospital. These were already happening before COVID, you know, and COVID just putting a spotlight on it. And there's been a lot of problems with nursing. There still are, but you just kind of tune out the noise and kind of keep going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's important that these issues are being exposed now, right? There's another, I know of one doctor, he was in New York. He had been working at the same hospital for like 20 years and then, you know, put out a statement about the issues there, and his choice was either redact his statement or get fired. You know, we all know what route he chose.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see that, you know, people are taking advantage of this situation in more ways than one, right? You have people who are trying to turn this negative into a positive by speaking out about these issues, exposing them, and trying to find change in all of this. And then you also have people who are seeing this situation, the glorification of healthcare workers, as a way to continue taking advantage of healthcare workers. And I think it's alarming to see that when you put out that poll, you know, who feels like they're not being respected, who feels that administration is taking advantage of them. And it was overwhelming. Like over 90% of people were like, you know, I don't feel like I'm being treated well. And, you know, we're seeing hospitals that are really running with that, you know, because people are essential, they're not, and they're go fight whatever issues that are happening. People are just like, oh man, it's such a tough job. And so the tougher the job appears, the more people are made out to be heroes. And then they're no longer focusing as much on those struggles that people are facing.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised with that poll too. I forgot what I asked. I think someone told me that they felt for Nurses Week. I asked, "What'd you get for Nurses Week?" And someone said, "Oh, a reminder that we're expendable." And it's true. I asked a lot of nurses in my poll, do you feel expendable sometimes? And overwhelmingly, like Toby said, I think 75 to 80% said, yes, I feel that way. And I was like, damn, it's tough sometimes. It's definitely tough because you do feel expendable sometimes. You think, because you put your heart and soul into work, into your patients, and then you feel like if you just disappeared for one day, like it really wouldn't matter, And I think that's really our healthcare system. We're very expendable. So a lot
And I
of
feel like
people,
that's a.
go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I just like it was just reminding me of like I feel like that's also a big contributor to burnout in a sense, because I feel like once you're giving everything you have into nursing and you're not seeing that security or in a sense reward, or like you kind of see like, why am I doing this? It kind of makes you question why you're if you're going to continue doing this if you don't have that security.
Yes, it's hard, and no one really does it for the appreciation, I think, right? No, I'm pretty sure no one does it for the appreciation, but if you're pouring this much of every facet of your being, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, into your job, and then you don't get appreciated, not even talking about Nurses Week, you don't get appreciated ever, you don't even get recognized for all this work that you're doing, that'll take a toll on any person, anyone.
And it's not, and I think it's important that you note that it's not unique to just nursing, but then with the requirements of the job and the things that you deal with every single day, it's physically and mentally taxing and emotionally too, right?
Yeah.
When you have patients who are before they were doing fine, and then all of a sudden they crash and they're they code and whatever else happens after, and that's I think why we see so much PTSD and other mental health issues, especially in places like New York and Florida,
right?
That are being hit super hard. People are coming out of this, and you're seeing the effects of what normally you would only see from veterans coming back from a war, and yet we're seeing the exact same things happening to healthcare workers who they're not going into a war by the traditional sense, but
right.
in the metaphorical sense, they are fighting a war and they're losing, and they're seeing the effects of it.
Yeah, I did see some headline articles. I haven't looked too much into them, but I did see some of that. Like some nurses are going through like some traumatic experiences, which is pretty rough.
Yeah, and so I think it's important, as we circle back into, we do these podcasts to give our nursing students, our undergraduates, kind of different tastes of what it's like in the real world, or even words of support, and just finding different pieces that can hopefully help someone form their own perspective on nursing. And I think it's important to see that there is all of this negativity out there, but then that there are also people like you who are trying to find ways to help others, finding ways to connect other people. And we're really seeing, as I'm following your growth on your Instagram and your YouTube, you're really helping unite people. People feel the message that you're trying to put out there about nurses, about essential workers, and then people, like you said, people will see your posts or your questions and they go, I felt that, or hey, I resonate with this. And then you're finding people who are connecting through your page and through the other pages that you're involved with, that they're finding other people like them and feeling this sense of solidarity and that support. And I think that's just so important. That's what the Male Student Nursing Society is about, is connecting other undergraduates, recognizing, hey, this can suck, hey, this is tough, but we're all in this together. We're all trying to get through the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. Man, yeah, it's really shocking how many people have told me that. They're like thanking me for making a funny video. I'm just like, dude, I was just trying to make you laugh, but people need to laugh nowadays, So it was really powerful getting those messages. Thank you. I needed this right now. I needed this in the middle. Someone from New York said, I needed this in the middle of this pandemic, from New York. Thank you. So it was really powerful for me. And then when I post stuff on Instagram, and people say like, that really spoke to me, I'm really surprised, but it's really cool that, one, people are listening to me, but two, I'm able to impact them in a different way that I'm used to, which is usually, at work.
Yeah.
And I think it's like through the power of like YouTube and social media in general, you've been able to expand that idea of a nursing community just beyond like your physical reach, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, which is huge. And there's a whole whole other community that I wasn't really exposed to before my essential video on Instagram. There's a bunch of nurses out there, you know, making memes, you know, posing and modeling, still trying to get on babes and scrubs on Instagram.
One day, right? One day.
One day they'll notice me. But yeah, there's this a whole, the social media is this huge thing right now that I think everyone should take advantage of, you know. But it's new and sometimes it's scary. But as a nurse, and I've heard complaints saying there's not enough nurses in the media. You know, they don't show nurses right in the media. Well, this is our opportunity as nurses to show what it's really like. You know, following HIPAA, not taking pictures in hospitals,
Mhm.
but what are nurses really like? You know, and some nurses are doing that. They're starting their own YouTube channel, start their own Instagram. But I think more people need to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing such a positive reaction to all of these pages, because there isn't, like you said, there isn't a lot of media from nurse, and so I think it's cool that because there isn't that coverage by other people, nurses are taking it upon themselves. You know, that's kind of what we do,
Yes.
right? We find a way, we figure it out, we get creative,
Yes.
you know, and do something about it, because
Yes.
that's what the job demands. That's what the training, you know, forces you to do, to be an advocate. And so it's kind of like nurses are being advocates for themselves now. Normally you're advocating for your patients, you're advocating for the family, but then now it's like, if no one's advocating for you, you kind of have to take it upon yourself and support each other. And so we're seeing this positive, really powerful resonation in nurses who are like, there isn't someone who's, you know, and originally there wasn't someone who was poking fun at the nursing field and healthcare, and so someone made a meme page, and so someone else saw that and said, hey, you know, that's pretty cool, I'll make my own meme page. And so now there's so many different meme pages, and then we're also seeing people, you know, documenting their experience. There's one page where this nurse is empowering other nurses and giving people, you know, advice, financial advice, really, you know, where she's giving people advice on how to negotiate pay, how to find the right job for you. You know, it's okay to quit. And it's like, it's so powerful because people didn't know that. You know, the reaction I see a lot in the comments on her page is, I didn't know I could say no to this job. Or I didn't know I could say, hey, this is abuse and it's not okay, I don't deserve this, and be able to advocate for myself to go find a job where I'm respected. Right? There's not, you know, that niche it really hasn't been filled, and now we have someone who's doing that, and it's such important work. And then now we have, you know, people like you who are creating these videos, you know, kind of poking fun, but also having a really real message on the nursing field and these different aspects that no one's really doing this. And there's so many other nurses, you know, from advice on how to pass the NCLEX, or how to take care of your mental health, or just what nursing is even like. And then it also connects people who aren't nurses to be able to get an insight into just how dynamic this field is and how many different personalities there are.
Yeah, tons of different personalities, tons of different dynamics in the field. Totally agree with you.
Yeah, and like you oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just like, because you said that, you know, it is dynamic and there are tons of different areas of nursing out there, and you said that you've done like as many as you've had. Like, what area of nursing are you in right now? I was just curious.
Currently, I'm in oncology outpatient.
Okay. And are you like, are you still specifically in that, or have you kind of been assigned to be tasked with people who have COVID at all, or no?
I do get COVID patients sometimes. Sometimes our unit becomes like an inpatient unit. Sometimes it becomes an observation unit, and we ended up taking care of COVID patients, but not too often. Not like the ones you see in New York or in high hit areas. Nothing like that.
Okay. And what is your okay, I was just curious because, you know, in terms of like nursing schools, you know, we have all been kind of on pause, even though we're all continuing online virtual simulations.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, what is your take on maybe like schools possibly reopening in like the summer and fall, like, and like if nursing students should be able to go into those clinical areas?
I think nursing students, if it's a teaching hospital, I think nursing students should absolutely 100% without a doubt be able to go in that in those hospitals. I think if it can be virtual, like didactics, lectures, keep them virtual, right? But I don't think we should halt training nurses because of this, if that makes sense. Because, I mean, it's such a weird time, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. but they talk about shortages, right? Nursing shortages. Some people are being laid off. Some people are being furloughed, canceled. So I still think it's important to teach the future nurses. I think y'all should still get your clinical hours in the actual hospitals. Of course, going through the right channels, going through the right avenues, getting screened, proper blood work. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to go in. To me, that doesn't make sense.
Is it maybe like a hospital liability thing where like maybe because we as nursing students we were not as experienced, because we're not as experienced, we may be more susceptible to contracting it, not handling things properly? Is it something like that maybe?
It could be. It could be related to what if a student gets exposed? What's the liability on that? It could be. It could be 100% that too. I don't know. As a sad as, let's not label it as sad or happy, but as this is shining light on us, COVID, you're just trying to see, money follows everything, and it's just kind of like, that's just kind of the reality of it. Not enough patients in one area. Oh, we got to cut nurses. Too many patients here, not enough nurses here. It just comes down to the money, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality.
And I feel like that's something that not a lot of maybe nurses like, I don't really know about it. Like, can you kind of shine more light about maybe like the business side of hospitals, or even like hospital politics a little bit more?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I love to talk about this because it bothers me. It's really a business first. It's a business first. Healthcare is second. I'm not a master at the whole insurance stuff, and I'm not really well versed in it. But if you ever had a hospital bill, I would definitely glance at it and see how much these procedures or blood tests cost. They cost thousands of dollars for, I don't know, one blood test. And you're just like, where's the money going? I wasn't sick. I just got my blood drawn. That was $1,000. And as a nurse, that you start seeing, oh, this person got, I don't know, an x-ray. You're like, that cost $10,000. You just see these little things. You don't look into charts of the financial ones, but you're starting to see like there's a discrepancy with the care being given and how much it actually is. And again, I don't explore it, but as a nurse over the past few years, you kind of see, it just boils down to the money. Elective surgeries were recently canceled, meaning the surgeries that weren't mandatory, that people wanted to have. They were canceled in some hospitals, and the hospitals found that they were losing a lot of money, and that's why they had to cut, some staff. And it's like, dang, like you don't really realize how much money is flowing through these hospitals and how much your work is being funded through all that money,
Mm-hmm.
And then, a different, let me see, what else? Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, I'm drawing a blank. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Okay.
I think it's important. These things are happening, and what's important to note is that even with elective surgeries, there are surgeries that are being classified as elective, even though they're curative. So there was a news article of this woman who she has cancer. It was ovarian cancer, and she was supposed to have that removed, and it's a stage 1, stage 2. But her surgery got canceled because it wasn't essential. And so we're seeing things like this happen where people are, getting affected by it and are being told you're going to have to wait a month, 3 months to have your operation. And who knows what their condition is going to be, in the next few months. And as this situation continues to evolve, who knows what regulations are changing. Luckily we're seeing that things are starting to ease up, even in California.
Yeah.
I think slowly things are hopefully going to be opening up, and we'll see where we are, in a few weeks to a few months. But, people, and I think that's the important thing to shine on this, is there's so many factors at play here. There's so many different things that are being affected. It's not just we have a lot of patients with COVID. It's who else is getting affected, who's getting kicked out of the hospital because they're not as acute, even though they have a chronic issue that needs to be treated, who's being kicked to the curb, or who's not able to get into the hospital when they need to because there's simply not the staff to deal with them. Like there's a guy in Florida who had malaria after coming back out of the country from, I think, South Africa or somewhere in Africa, and then wasn't able to get into the hospital. It took him I think 5 days to a week, and then he ended up dying because he couldn't get into the hospital because he wasn't a COVID patient.
That's,
And these things are happening. And also when you talk about charges, one pill of say ibuprofen could rack you up, $30-$60 when you can buy the whole bottle, for much less, right? And there's all of these different factors at play, and so it's interesting to see that all of these things are being exposed now.
Yeah, I think it's good and bad, that it's being exposed, but I don't know unfortunately, if much is going to change from it. I mean, healthcare is such a volatile topic, right? Some people like vehemently like agree on one side versus the other, and it's shocking.
Yeah. And so, with all of this negativity, all of these issues, with clinicals being upended and simulations and other clinical classes, going online, for you, what advice do you have for nursing students or even other nurses who are kind of hitting those walls? For you, you've been able to kind of shift your perspective and really find that you're trying to find an outlet through YouTube, but that wasn't working, and so you were able to kind of shift over and change the direction that you were going with your channel and your way of expressing yourself.
Right.
Kind of for people who aren't in your head, how do you have some insight into what goes on in your process and how you approach that?
So you want insight on my process to making videos,
or more like just like how do you navigate when you kind of hit a wall, when you kind of draw a blank and you're kind of not sure what to do with yourself? Because I feel like that's what a lot of nursing students are facing right now, where they're feeling like they're going through the motions of turning on my Zoom, going to class, studying, and it's like it just kind of feels like you're going nowhere because you don't have that clinical aspect, right? The clinical aspect is just so important to balance all of the nitty gritty, rudimentary, kind of more boring everyday nursing stuff, because you get to go and you get to talk to patients and you get to take all of that classroom stuff and apply it into something that's physical, a different form of learning, right? So for people who what do they do?
That's a great question. What you need to do, and this isn't just for nursing, but this goes along with what we were talking about in the beginning, where during your first year and my first 2 years of school, where you kind of don't know what you were doing, right? You're just taking what, basic chem, basic biology, and you're just kind of like, that's cool. Let me go hang out with friends. Let me go skip class because you can, because you don't see the consequences, right? You don't see what nursing is. And, to all those people who are experiencing the same kind of feelings right now, where you're going through these Zoom webinars, these Zoom classes, virtual graduation, and you're just like, why am I still showing up? For what? Are they even going to hire me? They're cutting new grads because of money. Are they even going to hire new grads? Is this going to be, can I get a job come NCLEX time? Can I take the NCLEX? I think you really have to shift the daily day-to-day consequences and feelings. You have to take that aside, right? Like, I have to get up and go to this Zoom meeting. It's going to be boring because I'm too lazy. You got to take those two things and kind of push them to the side. Boring and lazy, which I don't like boring things. I'm a naturally lazy person. I think most people are. Shift that to a side and think really, what's the next order of consequence, right? If I don't show up to this class, what's going to happen, right? That's a higher order consequence. Your first order of consequence, like if I don't show up to this class, I won't be bored and I can go on Netflix or play video games, right? That it's going to be fun, instant gratification. But you really have to think, but if I don't go to this class, I won't get my degree. And if I don't get my degree, I can't work towards my future, my vision. You really have to think of it in those terms. I remember when I first failed nursing school, I failed the first year. I wasn't that focused. I would take complete ownership of it because it was hard to. I was just focused on other things. But my second, fourth year, my fifth year, my final year, I had to focus on I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get straight A's. And I'm going to do very well. And that's what you kind of have to keep at your forefront. What are your goals? What is your vision? Because if you get caught up in the day-to-day minutia, I'm sure both of you can attest, you're going to get dragged down, So keep that vision clear, right in front, write it down, whatever your vision is, whatever your goals is, write it down somewhere. It's very, very, very important. People say to do that. You hear that all the time. Write down your goals, post it up, because it's that powerful.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to burnout too. You know, burnout, whether it's as a nurse or burnout as a nursing student, when you have your goal in
Hmm.
mind, the things you're trying to achieve, then
Yes.
you kind of shift your perspective, and no longer is it, oh man, this class sucks. It's this class is going to get me to that point in my
Yeah.
life. You know, this class allows me to move on to the next semester,
Yes.
and it's going to get me to my degree. Or versus in the nursing field, when you go, oh man, you know, I have all this documentation, these
Yeah.
shifts suck, but what are you working towards, right? And I think that's what, I guess, if there's something to take away from that, is when you have a goal in mind, when you have that thing that you're trying to achieve, it can help make it better, especially if you're, you know, not, I wouldn't say necessarily lazy, but maybe disinterested in what you're doing, right?
Right.
If you're not particularly interested in that thing, but you recognize that that thing's important to get you somewhere, because everything you need to do it, there's a reason. And it would be great if you could be passionate about every single thing you're doing.
Yeah.
But
But
there are definitely times where, you know, you kind of have to make
Mhm.
these sacrifices. You have to do things maybe you're not as interested in, just
correct.
to achieve the thing. And so, but I think as you continue reflecting on it, if you can turn that thing that you may not be as interested in doing, turn it
Yeah.
into something interesting, and then that just becomes part of your process, right? No longer is it just simply all about the destination. Now you kind of turn the whole journey into a process and get to
Yeah.
enjoy that whole thing, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what you're doing too, is like, you know, there's these things that suck about nursing, but as you're doing them, then they're giving you ideas to turn into a video to help make people laugh, because then no longer is it, oh man, all these things that are, you know, kind of lame about nursing, but then now those become your content, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Information.
It's a good. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, and also something that I found that like is kind of motivating me right now is trying to find a purpose or motive that's kind of beyond yourself. Because in a way, like yes, you know, a big motivator is like, oh, I don't want to let myself down, I don't want to fail. But I feel like something that could be even more motivating is you don't want to let other people down. You don't want to let your patients down. And I feel like
Yes.
for me, that's kind of my motivation right now. Even though I currently don't have any patients, it's like me putting in the work right now, whether it's just like memorizing this, understanding this, or just developing my work ethic, I know that it's going to carry on into the future and it's going to help me like take care of these patients in the future.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm glad you said that because you know, when you're a nurse, when you're working with others, you're like, even if they're the same person working next to you, you're like, that person didn't do well in school. You know what I mean? Like that person didn't put in the work in school. People know that, you know, people
Mm-hmm.
will see that your habits, your character, it will bleed into the work you do, you know? So I definitely, yes, put in the work now because that's very important for where you're going to be in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've noticed that a lot of, well, not a lot, but like I do have like classmates or even some friends that kind of see maybe some of the stuff we're doing right now in nursing school as maybe pointless, like, oh, I have to memorize all of these values, I need to know all this, when like
Yeah.
maybe when I'm a nurse I can just look it up on Google.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I see that, I understand that, but I also think that, you know, I think it's still important to go through this grind
Yes.
just so you develop that work ethic, because
Yes.
that work ethic is going to continue on forever. You might not remember everything you're doing right now, like
Yeah.
studying wise, but that habit you're building, it's gonna carry on for sure.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and so it just really comes back to, you know, how you carry yourself, right? How you incorporate nursing into who you are, and as that becomes your identity, is it going to be, you know, are you allowing yourself to be the nurse who, you know, it's like I didn't really put in that work and didn't develop those ways of really treating people, and so then that ends up showing in the way you treat your patients, right? Then you're not gonna know what's going on when they ask you a question. You're not gonna be able to find the right answer for them because you don't have that understanding before. Or you're gonna be that nurse that, you know, you work, you know, you put in that work, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to excel in school, right? Because I think none of us, you know, not everybody, school's not exactly everybody's, you know, cup of tea. You have amazing nurses who weren't necessarily the straight A, you know, student. They could have been B, C, but then it's about how you carry yourself, right? Are you going to have the will to figure it out, to find out, or are you going to give up? And so there's, you know, you could have that nurse that had straight A's in school, but how were they getting those A's? And then
Yeah.
you also have the nurse who maybe, you know, just got by, but then how were, you know, what was going on in their life? Maybe they had to start, or maybe they're, you know, school just didn't click for them, but they're able to carry themselves professionally and do a good job for their patients.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't really matter how well you did on those papers, grades. You know, it doesn't really matter what kind of degrees you get. It's just really like your character. You know, what kind of person are you? What kind of habits do you form? How do you treat people? You know, I've met really, really bad character nurses who are just not very good people. I've met bad character doctors who are just not good people, and that's just how they are. But it just comes down to character, you know. If you're taking away our degrees, you're taking away our job titles, it still comes down to how do you treat other people. And I think some people forget that. They get caught up not even in the glory, they're not even in the job. They just get caught up in how am I treating other people. Some people don't realize how they are.
And so it's like at the end of the day, you know, you made a post kind of poking fun at how people kind of collect letters, you know, at the end of their name. You don't want that RN, BS, and BOS, you know, and it just goes on and on and on. You know, those at the end of the day, if someone were to take away all of those letters, all of those things, what remains, right?
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, without all of that, and so it's kind of like a nurse is a nurse is a nurse. But if you took away those two letters, they're still a nurse, but it's not from their degree or their certification or the license. It's in how they treat people, how they carry themselves,
yes,
and who they are as a person.
I think that would be one of my main messages too. It's really how you treat other people, how you treat the people who are supposed to be listening to you, the people that you are supposed to be listening to, the people who are beside you. How do you treat them? And I think that gets kind of lost with all the letters and the degrees that people buy. But I think at its core, that's what it's about, right? I think one of my patients told me that recently. The most important thing isn't money, isn't houses, is the most important thing is people, right? And without that, what are we really, right?
Yeah.
And I tell my girlfriend this, my best friends this all the time when because they know I'm really busy with YouTube and stuff and trying to start my own business. And they're like, dude, I know you're busy. Or my girlfriend be like, I know you're busy, but can we hang out? I'm like, of course we can hang out. Like, if I didn't have them, then trying to accomplish my goals would mean nothing, right? So that's kind of what my message was, along with, you know, people are my passion too, because we can't forget those people.
And how do you like have that? Can you give it like maybe shine some light or some advice about how we're able to balance that? Because, you know, obviously nursing and nursing school, it's a very difficult, rigorous process like hours of studying this and that. Like how, like, and I feel like I've had difficulties with this too, of trying to balance that academic life with like your social, personal, family life. Like, how do you have any advice on that?
Oh yeah, man. I struggled with that a lot when I was in college, because I was in, like I said, student organization, student government, orientation program. I was in a fraternity, and then I was trying to get involved with nursing, and then on top of that, nursing school, and the Filipino Culture Club. So I struggled a lot with balance, and there is such a thing as spreading yourself too thin. You want to do all these different things, but you just can't, you know. I think I recently read a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller, and he talks about you have to just focus on one thing and do that one thing well, right? Some people, there's this whole like millennial myth where in the morning you wake up and do an hour workout, meditate, go to work 8 to 5, eat each one of those meals very healthily. At the end of the day, hit the gym again, read a book, and then do it again the next day, right? There's this like myth about what a healthy, balanced lifestyle should look like. But really, I think it's just about focusing on one thing, being unbalanced, okay? And that's what the book goes over. You have to do more on one thing. Some things might get less attention, but you have to do the majority of your work for one thing. So the majority of your work can be, you know, studying for nursing. And then if you want to work out, you know, a portion of that needs to be allocated to that. And then if you want to be social, a different portion needs to be allocated, but not balanced as 25%, 25%, 25%, not like that. It has to be unbalanced so that you're going towards your goals, if that makes sense. So you have to cut things out. you definitely have to cut things out if we're talking about how do you juggle all those things.
And I think
I hope that helps.
Yeah. No, I think that's an important question to ask too, that I think we don't get presented with a lot, because when you're in nursing school, everyone's kind of just like, you're working towards your degree, that's your goal. But for each different person, the question that doesn't get asked enough is what's important to you.
Yes.
Right. And so for you,
100%.
you've been able to recognize that, hey, nursing is important, but what's important to me is people.
Yes.
So that's what helps keep you going. Especially for people who maybe nursing isn't necessarily their passion, they have to start asking, what's the important thing for me, and is nursing the way for me to achieve that? Does it allow me to achieve that? So that you're going to be 60% into that important thing, and then nursing might even just be 10 or 20% of what is important to you. But as long as you can recognize that, then it's easier to not get as burnt out, because then you don't feel like, man, I'm trying to, like you said, 25, or maybe nursing ends up being that 80% of what you're focused on, when that's not the thing that's important to you. And so it's not to say that you should slack off on nursing, but what you're putting into it maybe is too much for what you're actually trying to do.
Yes.
And so you still want to put that effort, but is that effort 80% genuine, or is it really you're only 10% of you is there, and the other 70% you're trying to force yourself to like nursing or to invest in nursing?
Definitely. It's hard, because sometimes, especially with classes, when you're just learning, it might not specifically 100% align with you, but if it aligns with your future goals, that's the growing pains you're just gonna have to do. I have to go through this class or this clinical that I don't particularly enjoy or doesn't align with my well-being, but I have to go through it again, what we were talking about earlier, that's going towards my goals, right?
Yeah. And then so for people, who are the motivation speakers, there's a lot of different people that I follow that, and you notice all of these successful people, they all have one thing in common. It's they're very clear about what their goal and their passion is. And they do that, like you said, they do that one thing and they do it well. And they also recognize that they're not great at everything, that there's a lot of things they're not good at. They might like it, but they're not good at it. So they do the one thing they do well, and it allows them to also, because they're doing that thing so well, it also gives them other ways to invest in the other things that they want to, not because they feel like they have to.
I agree with that.
And I feel like there's so much pressure, though, like in nursing school for that. Like, even though we want to emphasize quality over quantity, I think it's because you hear your peers and everybody like, oh, I'm going to do, I need to be a CNA, I need to do EMT, I want to like work in this hospital, I want to be a nursing assistant. It's like, I feel like, especially I feel this constant pressure of having to do so much different things just to try to qualify or be qualified for maybe a potential job in the future, or trying to get connections. But I think it's like through this podcast and through knowing people, it's kind of slowly dawning on me that as awesome as it would be to juggle everything and get those new opportunities, it's kind of like you really need to focus on a couple things and try to get that quality out of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to stand out too, because a lot of people, have that EMT, have that CNA. I didn't have any of those, and I wasn't really particularly involved in those nursing organizations. But I feel like for me, what stood me out was, or had me stand out, was the interview process. Again, like what I said, my interpersonal communication skills. These are the things I would read on, and I think that's really what helped me versus someone who had 5 years CNA experience, but that's what I think. I don't go up to my boss and be like, hey, how did my interview go after I got hired?
And so it's about being genuine, right? It's about being yourself, and then especially the nurse who's helping people really find the right job for them and really advocate for themselves as far as pay and financials and all those nitty-gritty things that we don't talk about enough. Eventually, you do find that job that's right for you. And like you said, are you going to actively look for it, or are you going to stay stagnant and stay where you are? And I think that applies not just to when you're looking for a job as a nurse, but also even in nursing school. Are you going to allow yourself to kind of be that stick in the mud and not enjoy everything? Or are you going to find your way to make it work for you? Find your way to really make this a good experience. And I think that's what, at least for me, MSNS has really allowed me to do, is find all these different people, connect with these different people, and so that each person can, through this organization, really make it, make this whole experience theirs, rather than it being the same experience of everyone goes through 4 years, everyone joins, NSA because everyone joins NSA, and everyone gets their CNA license because everyone gets their CNA license, and EMT and all that. No, it's, you do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're passionate about, and that's what you get out of this. And I think that's at least my hope, is that more people are able to really hear that, and hear that it's okay to not do what everyone else is doing.
Yes, absolutely.
And if what everyone else is doing is what you want to do, great.
Yeah.
But do it because you want to, not because you feel like you have to do it just to keep up.
Yeah, exactly. Couple things there. When I was on Instagram was a very second afterthought for me. That's where people listen to me the most, I feel like. And if you go on Instagram on the nursing pages, a lot of it is like females, right? Posing, very model, babes in scrubs, like, and it's very intimidating as a male nurse. I'm like, I'm never gonna look like that because I'm not a female, right? And I'm bald. So it's that's what everyone was doing, and I can't do that. So I had to find a different way to kind of like show my message, show who I am, and that would be, through nursing humor, making people laugh. So it's really trial and error, finding what direction it is for you to go to. But I also want to comment on what you just said about being yourself, which I have a lot of problems with, because some people are just like, well, I'm just being me, so that means I can treat you this way because this is how I am. I want to say, yes, be yourself, but be your best self, try to find out what your best self is. And if your best self is treating other people poorly, then no one's going to want to be around you,
I think that's why it's so important to surround yourself with good, like-minded, passionate people. Like for MSNS, that's like, because honestly, when I first joined, I was very confused about nursing. Like, I knew I wanted to go into nursing, but I was very confused about the whole process. I was kind of lost in a sense, maybe like spiritually, emotionally, physically. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing really. But I think it's through MSNS finding people that were like very passionate about nursing. I think it was very infectious, and I think I needed that influence in order to find myself. So as important as it is to like kind of push away all the noise and try to find yourself and like do what you want, I think it's also important that you kind of need that community in order to find your way.
Absolutely. You can't do this alone. I don't do this alone. I don't make my YouTube videos alone. I talk to different people. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? It's always surrounding yourself with that community, the like-minded individuals, the people who want to continue to progress with whatever their craft is, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what's really cool about MSNS. Like, I've definitely grown through this organization, but I think Ryan especially, he's been our member of the year.
Oh, really?
Just
Congrats,
because of his involvement,
Thank you.
and now as a part of the e-board, his involvement has grown. But also, I think the coolest thing, all of these great achievements aside, it's really his your personal growth, and really watching. And I've been able to do that. I feel I've gotten like front row seats to that, having worked with you so closely over the past few years.
That's cool.
Seeing you grow out of your shell and really find your meaning in the program. And I think that's what's cool about what JJ, what you're doing on Instagram is there's not a lot of like you said, there's not a lot of nurses on Instagram. There's not a lot of representation, and so any little bit, people are really now pioneering. People like yourself really pioneering this idea of it's cool to be a male nurse. And I remember when I first started nursing school, so many people were like, you want to be a nurse? Why not be a doctor? Like, you're a guy, you're trying to be a nurse, like that doesn't work. And I was like, well, I want to be a nurse, like this is what I want to do. I don't want to be a doctor, like this nursing is for me. And I think the more representation we see, the more normalized it's hopefully going to get, and then more people, young boys everywhere will be able to see that, hey, nursing is cool, and maybe people who before maybe didn't pursue nursing because it wasn't cool for them, even down the line, young and old, will get to see that it's cool and maybe be able to make that transition. Like, I've met nurses who were in like finance or the arts or something not totally unrelated to healthcare, and then they make a career swap, you know, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, some even in their 70s, and they're just like, you know what, nursing is for me. I want to do nursing. I want to be a nurse. And it's like, and I think that's just so cool that the more normal it is to be a nurse, whatever your background, whatever you look like, you know, that it's okay, because nursing can be for everyone.
Yeah, it can be for everyone. It's there's a saying, nursing is for anyone, right? But not for everyone, you know. So it's dope. Being a male nurse is definitely, you kind of see things that I think a lot of other nurses don't as female nurses. I think, what was the statistic? 1 in 9 or 1 in 10?
Something
Something
crazy.
like that, yeah.
10%, and it's just like, oh man, you just start to see the discrepancy. I don't know if it'll ever even reach over 20%, but like you said, just normalizing how male nurses are in the field. You know, I think my little cousin, she was like 4. I told her I was a nurse, and she laughed. She's like, "You can't be a nurse. You're a guy."
She's 4.
And I was like, "I'm not a guy." That was a joke. But yeah, hopefully we can eventually stray away from that, when our kids won't think that only girls can be nurses one day.
Yeah. And it's just cool, you know, to see those things. You know, obviously males and females, everyone sees different issues in nursing.
Yes.
Right? But then I think it's important to just have representation for different demographics that may not get as much representation. And it's cool to see over the, you know, past even just 5 years, how that's really transformed. Like my cohort, we have 126. Of the 126, about 30 of us, so 1/4 of us are
what
male.
males?
Yeah,
that's huge.
It's gross.
And then
That's
I, you know,
awesome.
I talked to some of my professors who they were like maybe one of 2 male nurses in their cohort of like 60 or 100. You know, they're like, yeah, it was me and one other dude, and that was it. And then if any of us guys dropped out, like, or even a fewer, it's like we start off with 5, and then, you know, we end up being 2, or maybe I'm the only guy who graduated in my whole cohort.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a very common occurrence. And now we're seeing, you know, more and more males entering nursing and finding out that it's okay and it's cool. And, you know, you could be a guy on a maternity floor and that's perfectly fine. And there are a lot of male nurses who, you know, work in that demographic, or work in peds, and it's not like it's weird or not cool to, you know, like I think people think like if you're a male nurse, you have to be in ED or trauma, or, you know, the more like badass field. But there's male nurses in all, you know,
in all specialties. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, but I definitely don't think I'd be allowed in a maternity ward though, because some patients get kind of sketch. You know, you need like a very, very certain male personality to work in labor and delivery. You know, and I don't think that's for me. I
could see that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten kicked out of rooms.
Right,
before,
I get kicked out of rooms
just for, you know, being, and it's like, you know, you respect that, but it's also it's definitely something that I don't know if there's necessarily a solution to it, but it's definitely an issue that male nurses face. Like one of my professors, I talked to him, and he said, yeah, when he was in his OB clinicals, they just did charts. Like they didn't even get to walk into a patient room, and it was his instructor who did that. Who was like, you guys are just gonna read the charts and study the charts.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's kind of interesting to see how times have changed, where for me, my clinical instructor was an extremely strong advocate, just in general for his students, but also making sure that for me as a male nursing student, that I wasn't excluded, that I still got opportunities.
Yeah.
If I got kicked out of one room, she'd find another one where it was okay for me to enter and talk to.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that you keep pushing like that, because it's, you know, because, you know, of course, you know, it's within reason, you know, you have to consider the comfort of the patients, their culture, and like their preferences. But I think we have to keep pushing for that kind of, we have to keep being persistent if we want to grow in that area of nursing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think we're doing a good job overall, right? People just say, oh, this is XYZ. They're going to be in this room. They're a nursing student.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, is there, as we're kind of drawing to a close, is there anything that you would, you know, this is your platform. Is there anything that you would like to say or give to Yeah, anyone who's listening, for nursing students, nurses, or even people who aren't, like my dad listens to these podcasts.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, and he's not a nurse. He's a he's a computer engineer. So for him, just anyone listening, anything you would like to share or say.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would have to say is after school, where we don't have to learn anymore, I think that's the most important time to keep on learning, to keep on growing in anything, because it's gonna. We all say, "Oh, nursing is cool, lifelong learning, a platform for lifelong learning." And I remember writing that in one of my essays. And yes, it can be a platform for lifelong learning if you let it. Because no one's gonna put your nose to a book after all this. Unless you go back to school, which is a different story. But no one's gonna make you be a better person after this. No one's going to help you learn more about other subjects after school. And if you really stop learning and if you stop growing, then what are you really doing? That'll just contribute you to burnout, which will bleed into your nursing care. So really just don't stop learning, don't stop picking up books, don't stop growing, just keep exploring. You might not have your passion until later, but you won't know what your passion is. You won't know what's important to you if you don't literally try different things. And we can get caught up in our daily jobs and the daily day-to-day minutia, and it's easier to just get stuck in that cycle, like go to work. There's a stigma against 9 to 5, but nurses are in the same boat sometimes, stuck in a zombie land of 7 to 7 or 8 to 8. And really the only way to break free from that is to break from routine, keep on learning, keep on growing. So that would be my main message. Try in some way to keep learning and keep growing.
Well, thank you so much for giving us all of that, JJ.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation with you guys. It was less interviewee and it was more in conversational style. So I really liked it. Keep on doing what you guys are doing, and don't hesitate to reach out to me, both of you, for anything. Okay. Anything. Like, oh, I don't know what to do here. Anything. Trust me.
We appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much.